Good afternoon, students. Today, I will deal with the second part of my lecture on syncretic tradition, uh, Nanak and Kabir. In the first part, if you remember, I discussed on what is syncretic tradition, what is Sufism, what is Bhaktism, Sufism or Sufi movement, or what is Bhakti movement. And today I will discuss what is the difference between the Bhakti movement and Sufi movement, and uh, how Nanak and Kabir in their socio-political idea, how they have contributed towards Bhakti movement or towards syncretic tradition. So as I have mentioned in earlier class, that this Sufism and Bhaktism, they are not different because they belong to one tradition, syncretic tradition. They are for the Hindu-Muslim, unity. They, uh, you know, are for peace. They are against the essential character of different religion. Now there are lots of similarities between Sufi movement and Bhakti movement. But now what is the difference between the Sufi movement and the Bhakti movement? Again, this difference is not that much hard and bound. Okay, if at all we are asked to explain the difference between the Bhakti movement and Sufi movement, we can do like this. Bhakti movement largely, it was influenced, largely, it was influenced by the Hindu tradition, and Bhakti movement influences the Hindu tradition. Right. On the other hand, the Sufi, movement mainly, it was influenced uh, by the Islam, right? And Sufi movements has contributed positively to the Islamic tradition, right? Now, Bhakti movement, uh, you know, it sings bhajana or devotional song to worship God, and Sufi movement, it sings qawwalis to inspire religious devotion. Bhakti movement is all about uh, rival uh, revival. Sorry, Bhakti movement is all about revival and reformation of Hinduism. Sufi movement is all about bringing religious order for Islamic denomination. Then Bhakti movement is an Indian phenomena, and Sufi movement, it is it spans many continents and culture. So it is Sufi movement. It is a pan India phenomena. Bhakti movement shares direct emotional and intellectual and intellection. Right. Bhakti movement shares direct emotional and intellection of the divine, and Sufi movements emphasizes on simplicity and austerity, you know, austerity. Right. So these are some of the difference between the Bhakti movement and Sufi movement. However, these differences are not that much, exclusive in itself. So, being part of syncretic tradition, both Bhakti movement and Sufi movement has tried to, bridge the gap between the Hindu and Muslim. So it takes a Muslim and a Hindu uh, from you know following the essential uh, character of their respective religion, and both Sufism and or Sufi movement and Bhakti movement tries to install the syncretic culture within the Hindu and Muslim. And Nanak, Guru Nanak and Kabir Das both belong to the Bhakti tradition. So in your quotes, you know, Nanak and Kabir is there. I mean, in single word, uh, through Nanak and Kabir, we will try to understand the Bhakti tradition and its contribution to the syncretic tradition. Right. Uh, so who is Nanak? Nanak basically he is a socio-religious thinker. He is not a political scientist or political philosopher, right? But from his social and religious thinking, one may derive his ideas about politics and political institutions. If you see the time when Nanak lived, that time may be considered as the dark period of Indian history, in which uh, the social, religious, economic condition of the people had deteriorated beyond recognition. The crown means king or the ruler, the crown, far from doing anything for the people's welfare, the crown was indulged in political lawlessness, and the crown sought to prosper at the expense of their subjects. And he had, Nanak had witnessed the atrocities committed by Mohammedan ruler, right? Committed by the king, crown, or the Mohammedan ruler on innocent people, and had even challenged the existence of the God. So the Mohammedan ruler not only was doing atrocities against the innocent people, against his praja, against his subjects, but also, uh, the Mohammedan ruler, he was challenging the existence of the God, right? So this is the dark period of Indian history Nanak is talking about. And in that dark period, you will find people are kept away from their recognition, right? And who was keeping away from the recognition of from or who was keeping away the people from their recognition? It was the king. So king was not allowed people to maintain social recognition, religious recognition, and the king was also not bothered about the economic recognition of people. The king was thinking about himself. The king was not doing anything for people's welfare. Right. So on the other hand, so this is one part of the darkness. On the other hand, there had been exploitation from the side of selfish priests in both Hindu and Muslim religion. So on the one hand, the Mohammedan ruler, he was causing pain for the people. On the other hand, there was exploitation from the priest class, both in Hindu tradition and Muslim, both from Hindu religion and Muslim religion to the people. So people, they were in a pathetic situation in political environment and in social environment. Now, in such a situation, Nanak started awakening individual from this lethargy, right? Now, it is due to this, exploitation. People become, lethargic. People become stagnant. People become dormant. And Nanak, in that situation, he started awakening individual from this lethargy, and he helped people in understanding their own moral and rekindled in them the dwindling, sorry, rekindled in them the dwindled religious and divine fire. Right. So, in a time when people were losing their own identity, people were becoming dormant, stagnant, lethargic. In that situation, Nanak helped people to understand their own moral being, and he helped individual to realize their own, divineness, their own divinity that was within them. Now, to Nanak, individual was the core in the divine plan. Liberals, they also talk about in the uniqueness of the individual. And Nanak is also talking about uniqueness of the individual, but Nanak is not a liberal. For Nanak, Nanak is giving a divine justification towards the uniqueness of the individual. To Nanak, divine has created individual for a specific, purpose, right? And individual is the core. Divine has created other species as well, but among them, individual was the core in the divine's creation. Now, if individual was able to shed selfishness and do away with the superficialities of life and develop his moral personality, he could raise himself to the highest of absolute truth. Now, Nanak is saying nobody damages the divinity of an individual. If the individual is able to go beyond his selfishness, if the individual do away from his superficialities or do away with the superficialities of life, right? So if I will not be, selfish, if I will be away from the superficialities of my life, and if I develop the moral, character in my personality, then nobody, nothing can defeat or nothing can take away the divinity that is within me, right? And if I do have all these things, then I could raise myself to the highest absolute truth, right? So individual can know the absolute truth if the individual is selfless, if the individual is free from superficialities, if the individual is authentic, right? Now, once the person knows the absolute truth or in search of absolute truth, that person would become really free, right? And freedom to Nanak is to see things in their true form and not and act accordingly. So, what is freedom? Freedom means knowing things in their true form and act accordingly, right? So, understanding that absolute truth is very important for individual freedom. Now, Nanak emphasized on the divine oath of individual. Okay, let me speak in other words. Nanak's emphasis on the divine oath of the individual led people to view things in an altogether different light. Now, it is due to the impact of Nanak, people, started viewing things different, differently. People were inspired by the idea that all are equal before the God. I mean, for the first time, people got this idea from Nanak that divine is there within every individual, and every individual they are equal before the God, right? So people were inspired by the idea that all are equal before the God. Hence, all are entitled to participate on the basis of equality in the affairs of the community. Now, it is due to Nanak, people got this idea, people were inspired that they are like others, they are equal, and they have every right to participate in the community matters. Right. Nanak knew that equality and brotherhood will bring awareness of the people their true position in the society, which will pave the way for the national, which will pave the way for a rational and concerted action against organized authority. Right. So here organized authority basically Nanak mean the Mohammedan ruler, the political elite and the social elite, the Hindu Brahmins and clerics. I mean Muslim, priest, Hindu priest and Muslim priest. Right. Now they represent the organized authority, and Nanak knew that. Now once equality and brotherhood is installed within the individual, then individual will become rational, individual will do you know revolution against the organized authority. And for Nanak, authority in every sphere flows from God. Right. Now Nanak is again he is suggesting to the authorities also. He has suggested the people that they can go against the organized authority. Here organized authority, I said the king, the priests. And what is the nature of the organized authority? The nature of organized authority is the exploitation and oppression, right? Organized authority do or does action which exploit and oppress the people. Now for Nanak, the authority must know that it flows from the God, right? So those who have performed, you know, austerities in their former life are now the king and receive the tributes on the earth. Nanak is justifying the divine origin of state. The king is the God, or God has sent the king. God has opted a person to be the king, right? King in his previous life, he was a noble person, and in this bar, the king has got, or king has received the tributes on this earth. This political authority can be maintained only if the king performs his function justly. Right. Now Nanak, in different occasions, while answering to the different personalities, he has given all these views. Right. I have collected all these views and try to present it in such a way that one can understand the political thoughts of Nanak. Now Nanak is saying that a king must know that he has received tributes from the God, right? And Nanak suggesting the king that the king can maintain his political authority if the king performs his function justly. And what is the just function? The just function is doing good to the people. Now, if the king indulges in worldly, pleasure, sensual pleasure, or love, and before fits has claimed to be the ruler, right? So, if the king is indulged in sensual pleasure, then the king will lose, or it before fits his claim to be the ruler, right? If the king is guided by the sensual pleasure, now it forbids his claim to be the king. A king cannot call himself a king if the king is guided by the sensual pleasure. Now, in such a situation, God may send another authority to, deprive the existing, ruler, to deprive the existing king. So the king is for the Raja is for Praja. The king is for subjects. Now Nanak believed that every aspect of one's life must be governed by divine wisdom, and this is applicable for the king as well. The king must imbibe the divine and moral virtue, and his practice must contribute towards material and spiritual upliftment of the community, right? So the belief and action of individual's life, including the life of a king, must be governed by divine wisdom. The king must contribute towards the material, upliftment of the community, along with the spiritual upliftment of the community. So both are important. So only if a ruler is guided by the divine light, he can give the real service to the people. He should create conditions in which love for God and spiritual value may flourish. Right. So since king is chosen by the God, chosen by the God, the king must be guided by, or the ruler must be guided by the divine light, right? And what the ruler or king should do, the ruler or the king, they, or he must uh, give the real service to the people. And what is the real service? The real service is that he must create conditions in which love for God, spiritual values may flourish. A ideal ruler must have the betterment of his subjects at heart. Right. So, who is an ideal ruler or king? If the praja, if the subject is in the heart of Raja, if the subject is in the heart of the king, then that king is a ideal king or ideal ruler. For Nanak, the chief who does not appropriate everything to himself but gives to other in the name of God is blessed. Right. So king is the chief, right? So king must not appropriate everything to himself. Rather, the king must give everything to others in the name of God. Right. So it is not only applicable for king, it is applicable for the common individual. That common individual must not accumulate everything. Common individual must also give your I mean things what you call what you call your things. The king or the individual must give the things to the others in the name of God. And if the individual or king does so, then that individual or king is blessed. And who is blessing them? It is the God who is blessing them. Now, in his view, a society cannot be stable or prosperous unless people engage their energy to constructive or engage their energy in construct pursuits and in right channels. Right. So a society can be stable, can be prosperous if the people uh, will engage their energy towards the constructive pursuits and engage their energy in the right channel. Then only a society can progress, society can be stable. Nanak was very much critical on Brahmins who earned their livelihood by preaching all sorts of falsehood and exploited the people for their personal gain. So Nanak, he was critical about the practices of Brahmin in his time. Now, in similar vein, Nanak also criticized those who exploited the others people's labor in order to make gains for themselves. Right. So Nanak was in fact in favor of genuine labor. Right. So those who exploits the others' labor and gain profits out of that, Nanak was critical on them. Now, honest productive work. Nanak has deep respect towards honest productive work. Honest productive work and sharing of fruits of the same with the others is essential attributes of a religious person and is a sure passport for the realization of the truth. Now, what is the attributes of a religious person? The attributes of a religious person is the honest productive work, right? You must indulge, if you are a religious person, then you must indulge in the honest in the honest productive work, and the fruits what you achieve from that honest productive work, you must share that fruits with the others, right? Then that will help you to realize the truth. Now, Nanak believed that the ultimate goal of human personality is the enjoyment of, or is the enjoy divine, beatitude. Hence, human personality should not encumbered by ignorance, superstition, and other vices. Right? So, the ultimate goal of human personality is to realize the divinity and to enjoy with that divinity. And the realization of that divinity is possible only when Human personality is not encumbered by ignorance, superstition, and other ill and evil things. Now, both society and state must create condition for individual to further their personality. Hence, to Nanak, state is there for the individual, right? So Nanak is all, I have said Nanak is not a liberal, but Nanak has given importance to the individual. That individual is the end, state and society, especially the state is a means, right? Now coming to Kabir, Kabir, he was the son of a Hindu widow, and her mother left him near the water tank at Banaras. And why her mother left him? It is because her mother wanted to hide her shame. Right. So as a result, he was then picked up by a Muslim weaver, and the name of that Muslim weaver was the Niru, who you know brought up or brought him up as his son. Right. So Kabir, he was a son of Hindu, but he was cared by, or he was given socialization by a Muslim weaver. So though Kabir was illiterate, but he was conversant with the religious literatures of Hindu. Right. Now, you one thing we uh, often find in our ancient texts, in our history, that people were not literate, but they were intelligent, right? I can give you, uh, you know, Gangadhar Meher, Bhimo Bhoi, Kabir, right? They are not literate, but they are intelligent. They know the core of philosophy, right? So Kabir, he was very much conversant with the religious literatures of Hindu. To him, to Kabir, religion without bhakti is no religion at all. And today we understand the relevance of this statement. So religion without bhakti is not religion at all. By bhakti, Kabir means worshipping God through bhajana. By using bhajana, he was imparting religious instruction to both Hindus and Muslims. Right. So, bhakti to Kabir is worshipping God through bhajana. That means connecting yourself with the God by reciting some devotional songs, not professionally, right? With emotion, with connection, right? And by using this bhajana, Kabir was imparting the religious instruction to both Hindus and Muslims. By criticizing the rituals and practices of both Hindus and Muslims, Kabir showed that their differences were only at the very superficial level. He refused to acknowledge the caste distinction or to recognize the authority of six schools of Hindu philosophy. He said, uh, he said that God is neither in temple nor in mosque, neither in Kaaba nor in Kailas. If one is true seeker, then he will find God immediately near to him, because the God is the breath of all breaths. Right. So basically, Kabir was hinting to devotion, that if you are a truly or if you are a true devotee, then God is with you. The way you want to see the God, you will find him in that way. Now Kabir gave no importance to that learning which did not teach love to a person. To him, it was only through love that a person could become a scholar, right? Compassionate, right? So Kabir, the goal of learning is to develop a compassionate attitude, right? Is to forgive a person, right? And if you develop love and the qualities of compassion, then you become a scholar. So criticizing the domination of Brahmins in society, Kabir was of the view that it was in their interest that Brahmins had made ritual ceremony as their own monopoly. He criticized the Brahmanas that they have become so engrossed in the reading of Vedas that they have forgotten to recognize the soul, right? So Kabir was very much critical about the Brahminic tradition, especially Brahminic rituals and ceremony. Right. For Kabir, all these rituals and ceremony Brahmins have created in order to maintain their supremacy. Right. So no doubt Brahmins are very good at Veda, but Brahmins they do not understand the soul which is there in everyone. So in fact, Kabir wished to remove all societal evils, hierarchies, and exploitation from society. To him, this could only be achieved through bhakti, devotion, and love towards the God. So, only through the devotion, love towards God, these social ills and evils can be eradicated. Right. So, Kabir, in this sense, Kabir was not a revolutionary. Right. Kabir was, you know, what I will say, Kabir, it will take some time, right? If you uh, you know if you want to remove the societal ills and evils, hierarchy, exploitation from the society through bhakti, through the through generating realization in the people, then it will take some time. So in that sense, Kabir, he was not a revolutionary, rather than he was a evolutionary, one can say. Now in this conception, in his conception of ideal society, what Kabir had provided, you know, there would not be any exploitation by rich to poor, because there would not be any concept of private property in the ideal society. So in Kabir's formulation of ideal society, there is no concept of private property. Hence, there will be no rich and poor. Kabir was Kabir was also against the hierarchical government, as it was to reinforce the culture of feudalism. Right. So Kabir was against the hierarchical government, that one is subordinate, another is the superior. So this hierarchical system for Kabir, it will produce the culture of feudalism. Now in his view, people should take part in the collective decision making without any need for a king. Even in the ideal society of Kabir, there is no concept of king. Why? Because people are enlightened, people can take decision for themselves. Now residents of the Kabir's ideal society will be the follower of monotheistic and syncretic God, and they will not be judgmental of different religion, different creed, different cleavages, and this would enable them not to discriminate against each other. They would show respect for all God's creation without being any or without having any negative attitude or attributes. So in the Kabir's ideal state, ideal society, you will find only the enlightened people, people who understand that there is divinity within them, people who love each other, right? So from Nanak's political thought and from Kabir's political thought, one can sense how Nanak and Kabir has contributed the syncretic tradition. At the same time, Nanak and Kabir has influenced by the syncretic tradition. So that's it, students. I hope uh, you will, or this lecture will help you to understand the Nanak and Kabir's contribution towards the syncretic tradition. So thank you very much.